Hello, this is Kirill from forexbot.com and welcome back to the series of tutorials on testing and optimization in MetaTrader 4. Today is tutorial number 5 and we're going to be talking about the different models that are available for backtests in MetaTrader 4. The models can be found here in this drop-down menu, and as you can see there are three distinct models for backtests, which are every tick, control points, and open prices. And today we will discuss benefits and drawbacks of each one of these models, and most importantly we will understand when and why to use either of these models for your backtests. So without further ado, let's proceed to the presentation for today. Testing models. Let's look at a scenario. We have 3 bars, 2 bullish, 1 bearish, and let's assume that we're working on the 15-minute time frame. As you all probably know, it's the open, high, low, and close prices. First of all, the open prices model. The open prices model is the most basic out of the 3 models, and all it does is it looks at the open price for every single bar. So assuming that we have 4 bars, including this next one over here, the open prices model will only take into account 4 reference points, which it will use in the back test. So as you can see, that's why it's very basic, and that's why it's also very quick, because it doesn't take much time to just look at one price for every bar. Next model is the control points model. The control points model is the next step up from the open prices model. What it does is it takes a bit more reference points into account. To understand this better, let's look at this bar in the middle. Let's zoom in. Because it's an M15 bar, it is actually constructed of 3 M5 bars. So what the control points model will do is it will take the open, low, high, and close prices for every single one of these bars, making that 3 times 4, 12 reference points. What it will then do is it will model the ticks in between those reference points. So therefore, there will be much more ticks in the control points model, and they will all be used for the back test. And finally, the every tick model. The every tick model is the most precise of the 3, and it is the most precise you can get in MetaTrader 4. What it does is it not only breaks down the bar into the next lower time frame, but it also takes into account all of the other lower time frames. So in our case, it would be the M5 and the M1 bars. So here I've illustrated the hypothetical M1 bars for this one M15 bars, and as you can see, there's 15 of them in here. If we were working on the daily chart, then the every tick model would take into account reference points from the hourly chart, from the 4-hourly chart, from the 30-minute chart, from the 15-minute, 5-minute, and 1-minute chart. So from all of the time frames that are below. Once again, it takes the open, high, low, and close prices as reference points. I haven't illustrated here, but what it does, it also models ticks in between those prices, because MetaTrader 4 actually knows how many ticks there should be. The count of ticks is stored in MetaTrader 4, and therefore it models the ticks in between those prices using sophisticated wave models and so on, but we don't need to go deeper in that. MetaTrader 4 takes care of that. Based on that, our back test is conducted, and that is why it takes a much longer time than the other 2, and that is also why it is much more precise, because we have a lot more reference points. And so the summary for these 3 models is we'll go from bottom to top. So the bottom one is the open prices model, the least precise one. When would you use the open prices model? You would use it only if you want an indicative result of the performance of your system. Definitely something you shouldn't rely on, but there are cases when you can actually legitimately use the open prices model to test your Forex system, and that is when your expert advisor only uses the open prices of the previous bars. If that is the case for your expert advisor, if it doesn't take into account the ask and the bid price or values of indicators within the bar, if it only works with the already finalized bars, it only looks at their open prices, then you can use the open prices model to legitimately test or optimize your Forex system, and that's a very important point because it can save you a lot of time since the open prices model is the fastest of the three. There is not much point in using the every tick model if you're going to get the same result with open prices. Also, I've put in brackets here that if your expert advisor only uses close prices, you can still use this model, and that's because the open price is effectively the close price of the previous bar. The control points model, it can also give you an indicative result, which would be much closer to the actual result of the system, but also you should only use it for reference. And you can also use the control points method for legitimate testing of expert advisors, which only use open, high, low, and close prices of the finalized bars, which are to the left of the current one. And finally, the every tick model is the best quality model that you can get in MetaTrader 4, and it should be used for testing of most expert advisors unless you have this intrinsic knowledge of the expert advisor. So let's go back to the terminal and see how this all plays out in the tester. We'll just select the moving average expert advisor. As you can see here, I've selected open prices. I've set a date for the 2 previous months, and we'll keep visual mode on, and let's see how this works. So as you can see in open prices, the terminal is only generating 1 tick for every bar. It is drawing the whole bar, but you should know that it's only taking into account the very first tick of every bar, which represents the open price. That is why this test is very quick and very imprecise. So if I speed this up, it's already done. That's how quick it is. And there's our result. Now, if we move on to control points and do the same thing, you will notice that much more ticks are generated for every bar. We'll zoom in quickly here, and as you can see, MetaTrader 4 is generating quite a few ticks on every bar. It isn't too many, but it is taking into account those reference points we talked about. Once again, this test is pretty quick, so if I speed this up, once again, there it's finished already. So now if I go to the graph, as you can see, the results pretty much the same, and up here you have a warning message saying that this is control points and the results must not be considered. Now if we do every tick and we slow this down, we'll start this. As you can see, MetaTrader 4 is collecting M1 data. Now it'll be collecting M5. Oh, it already collected M5 data very quickly. Basically, it uses that data to generate those reference points and then model the ticks in between them. So if we speed this up a little bit, you will see that there are quite a lot of ticks being generated within each bar, and the test is progressing very quick, not very quickly, actually very slowly, and that's why this method takes much longer, but it is much more precise because you get that large number of ticks. So if I speed this up, it takes a bit longer to finalize the test. If we look at the graph, it is similar again. Here, there is no warning message. It says every tick, the most precise method based on all available least time frames to generate each tick. And it gives us the percentage, or this is an indication of how precise your method was, or how relevant this test is in terms of real trading. So it's got 89.59%, and I think that anything above 80% is good. Some people look for 90 or 95% modeling quality, and you can improve that by downloading financial data from your broker or other sources and uploading it to MetaTrader 4, and that's something we'll talk about in further tutorials in this course. There'll be a tutorial just on that topic. And so one more thing before we finish off today's tutorial, I'd like to give you a word of warning that even though it's called every tick, it's not actually literally every tick. And I can prove this to you. If we go into the history center over here and we look at the bars for euros dollar, this basically shows you all the data that's stored in MetaTrader 4. And if you go to the hourly chart, you can see that MetaTrader 4 stores information on every bar. It only stores open, high, low, close, and volume. Volume is the number of ticks within that bar. For M30, it's the same thing. For M5, it's the same thing. For M1, it's the same thing. The observation that we can make here is that there is no information on ticks. The lowest level of granularity that MetaTrader 4 stores is the 1 minute time frame bars, and it only has open, high, low, and close prices for them. So in reality, there were actually 8 ticks within that bar, but MetaTrader 4 only has 4 prices stored for that bar. In this bar, there were 12 ticks. MetaTrader 4 only has 4 prices stored in there. And this is a historical phenomenon of MetaTrader 4. It has historically developed in such a way that this platform doesn't store tick data. That just means that even though the model is called every tick, it's not actually taking every tick into account that was in reality. And that is why you have this percentage. That's why it tells you that the accuracy of the model in this case is approximately 90%. You will probably never get 100% for that specific reason that MetaTrader 4 doesn't store tick data. Having said that, the tests that MetaTrader 4 allows you to conduct are very accurate, especially with every tick. They yield pretty good results, and I certainly, in my trading career, I have relied on them for testing of my systems, and I'm generally happy with what MetaTrader 4 allows me to see using this every tick model from most expert advisors. So that's the end of today's tutorial. I hope that was useful. It was a bit longer than usual, but personally I think that this information is very important to further understand what's happening in the background of MetaTrader 4 when we're conducting these tests. That's all for today. Hope to see you next time, and until then, happy trading.